In the music business, it's the business that keeps the music alive. We no longer have the church or the nobility keeping our musicians and their organizations alive as they did in the past. So how do musicians and their organizations stay alive in today's world? We're fortunate to have with us today someone who is actually in the music business. Welcome, Larry Hancock from Opera San Jose.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you for being on the show. So, Larry, tell me about your organization. How did it get started and what do you do with it?
Okay, Opera San Jose was begun quite a long time ago, 35 years ago. It was founded by an opera singer who had retired and taken a position at San Jose State. And her name is Irene Dallas, or I should say was Irene Dallas. And at teaching at the university, she realized that singers who were ready to launch careers had no place to go to launch careers in this country. So she decided, we're talking about 1970s, she decided to found a company that would assist singers from going from the student phase of their lives into the professional career. And she founded Opera San Jose. I was her graduate assistant and the first hire at Opera San Jose. So I've been there 36 years, even though the company's only been in existence for 35.
Excellent.
It's not that way anymore, however. Although these many years later, it's no longer a bridge for people out of university into the professional life. Now it's for people who have established professional careers and are looking for work, frankly.
Yes.
And that's a lot out there. There are many, many talented, capable singers. But we still like to grab them in the first years of their professional lives. They may be Fest singers at the Bavarian Staatsoper or someplace like that, but still they're in the starting years of their careers. And we tend to hire mostly American singers, well, 99% American singers. Stage directors, conductors, they come from anywhere all over the world. But the singers tend to be Americans who are at the beginnings of their careers for the younger roles.
And so I understand that your opera, unlike most, as they nurture the new beginning opera singer, the opera singer already has all the training. They just don't have the experience and the resume built yet, correct?
Well, one of our goals is to try to cast them in roles that they need.
Okay.
Right? Because there are a certain number of operas that you probably should have that. If you're a baritone, there are certain roles you need and so forth. So we're trying to cast people in roles that will help them along the way. But many times we're casting people in roles that they've done many times, but they like the role and they want to sing it. So it's both now. It's not so pure as it was in the old days. Coming here tonight, I was getting very nostalgic because thinking back 35 years ago and when we first began and what that was like. And I was very nostalgic for those days when young singers were out there, you know, giving it their all. But now they're far more professional and far more accomplished, and they're out there giving us something very different from intention. They're giving us the actual product.
So how do you find these singers?
Well, we audition for them. We hold auditions often, but there are two major auditions annually. Normally in November, when we're in the theater anyway, we will hear auditions on the stage of the California Theater. And that's for folks from anywhere, but of course it would appeal to people who live in the Western United States. So we're going to hear singers there. We'll probably hear 2 days of singing in San Jose. And strangely enough, New York City is the mecca for auditioning for opera singers. Singers come from all over the world to audition in New York in the month of December, late November and December. So we go in normally early December, and we'll hear singers for normally 3 days, and we'll hear from 150 to 170 singers over that time. And that's where the bulk of the casting comes from.
So how long is each audition?
Yes. About 7 minutes.
A 7 minute audition
Not much
to
time,
make your career.
Not much time.
No stress at all.
Yeah, singers are accustomed to it, however.
Yes. So is there a particular theater that you like for that, or is it a different place all the time?
We don't work in a theater. There are many audition studios in New York. We use one of those.
Okay.
You can't rent a whole theater to hold an audition. It would be, you know,
ridiculously
$10,000
expensive.
a day.
Yes.
So, but we prefer the place at the Metropolitan Opera Guild. They have a large room there, and it's away from the madness of the downtown audition studios, and that's very nice. Juilliard is in that building, and it's a good room. The acoustics are decent. You can know what you're getting. it's very handy, right across the street from the Met.
Yes, and near a restaurant that I like.
There you go.
So if a person auditions and they get hired and they come out here, what is their career like here? How do they get started?
Okay, well, what is their performance like here?
Yes.
Let's divvy up the company into its two types of singers. We have resident singers who are with us for the year, and they normally a whole year, sometimes an opera less, right? Okay. But they would normally arrive at the very beginning of July, normally right after the 4th of July, and then they're going to sing principal roles all season. Okay. And we like to have about 6 of those in our resident company. Sometimes we don't, sometimes there are fewer, but we like about 6. And then there are the guest artists. And guests come in for roles that are difficult to cast. Like this past season, we opened the Così fan tutte, and in the middle of the season we did the Flying Dutchman. Well, guess what? Only one singer could do both of those things, right? Everybody else, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Because it's just a different kind of instrument.
Yes.
So we have guests in for roles that our residents are not really suitable for. We used to put them out there in any case. They had to go out there and sing it, even though it wasn't right for them. And we had 2 resident casts. We had 8 to 10 singers in residence. And I felt that was failing our audience. It was great for the singers. It let them understand what was working for them, what was not working for them. I should pursue these kinds of roles, not those kinds of roles, right?
Yes.
And they got wonderful experience. But I felt that it was not good for the audience. And today, the performing arts are about the audience, pure, plain, and simple, because it is so desperately difficult to sell tickets, and
yes.
has been for quite a while now.
So that leads into, how does your organization make its money? Is it mostly ticket sales? Is it mostly donations?
It's about 47% from what we call earned income, and the balance is from contributed income. Earned income includes more than ticket sales. We rent scenery, we rent costumes, we do performances out into the community, just at large. We go into schools, and there's some little bit of money that comes in from that, not much, but you have to charge something or they forget you're coming, which has happened. Okay,
yes.
So you have to charge a little something to get on the principal's desk.
Yes.
So everybody knows you're going to be in town. All right, so the rest comes from really individual donors. They are keeping everything alive. There are some magnificent foundations in our region. The David and Lucille Packard Foundation, the Hewlett Foundation. There is one corporation that is stalwart, and that's Applied Materials. These companies are always there every year. You can count on them. The city of San Jose also provides some public funding, but that seems to go down every year. Yeah. However, we count on individuals, and individuals have stepped up. And they are keeping the company in business. It is individual donors. Okay.
I know you and I talked previously, and one number that truly astounded me. We live in an area where home prices are sometimes astronomical, many multi-million dollars, and yet your annual budget is?
A typical annual budget for Opera San Jose is going to run from $4.1 million to $4.3 million.
I don't see how you can do it for that.
You can't.
I am astounded.
It's a myth.
when you look at the number of people that you have to hire for a production, when you look at the sets that have to be made, the costumes that have to be made, fabric, I'm really astounded that you're able to do that.
One of the things that is terribly important is that we have a lot of stock. Okay. We have about 10 opera sets in storage that can come out, and about 3 that just need a little work and they could come out. Okay. And we have more sets of costumes than that. So in a normal season, we would perhaps build 1 new show. Okay. Or it might be that we would build new scenery but pull costumes up that we already own, modify those, work with them. But that saves a great deal of labor and material cost, okay? So that's a way to do it. If you're only building 1 new show a year, the costs are much more reasonable. However, facing the coming seasons, our budget is a suddenly quite a great deal higher for next season that starts in September, because we're doing 2 new productions in the same year. And one of them is Abduction from the Seraglio by Mozart, and the other one is Moby Dick, Jake Hagee. Okay. Now, we're a co-producer of the Jake Hagee opera, so what's killing us is not scenery, it's singers.
Okay.
You need 40 men in the chorus.
40 men in the chorus?
40 men in the chorus, and then there are all the small roles, and then there are 4 dancers. So that's a lot of folks. So that's the thing that's breaking the bank.
From other organizations that I interact with, I know how difficult it is, particularly to get male singers.
Yeah, you have to fly them in. You have to house them.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so costly. You're bringing these people, there's airfares to pay, there are hotel accommodations to pay for. We try to get homestays. We have some apartments of our own, but not enough to accommodate a large cast. There are many, many roles in Moby Dick.
Yes.
And then a chorus of 40 and 4 dancers. That's a whole lot of people. So what made us brave about that was last year we did Silent Night. And that needed quite a number of men in the chorus also, and a large number of small roles and a few leading roles.
Tell us about Silent Night.
Well, I don't know anybody who saw it that didn't say it was not an astonishing experience for them. Coming here, I was running over in my head, what are the top 10 operas? Because you have to have those, right? And of course you can just rattle them off because we all know what they are. And I said, but you have to add Silent Night to that. Silent Night outsold The Barber of Seville.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite, Kevin Putz and Mark Campbell. Mark Campbell was the librettist. Kevin Putz is the composer. They created an absolute masterpiece, and it was Kevin's first opera ever.
Wow. So I missed that. So are you going to do it again? Of course I'm sorry. I can't be in every theater at the same time.
No,
and
but that thing
difficult.
It's rare, it's hard to put on, it's expensive to put on. But we built a set that was expensive to build, but it's expandable and contractible.
Good.
And it's very, very realistic while only indicating.
Okay.
And Arizona Opera has just rented it. They're going to be producing the opera themselves.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's something that can go into most any size house, whereas the original world premiere production is quite large. You really have to have a stage the size of Minnesota Opera because that's where it premiered. You really have to have a big stage to put that thing on. So ours is, it can move, it can be wider, it can be closer together, it can be all kinds of things, moves all around, everything rolls.
Good. And fits in a truck.
Oh, well, it fits in a couple of trucks.
A couple of trucks, but okay.
Yeah, it fits in a couple of trucks.
But the point is it folds and contracts.
That's
so
right.
It can,
so that a lot of companies can do it, which makes it possible for companies who are not the big international houses, or at least companies working in huge stages, to be able to take this magnificent masterpiece of an opera across the country. And Kevin even wrote a reduced orchestration for this, so that companies with smaller orchestra pits say, our pit can fit 47 players.
Yeah.
And so he wrote it for 47 players. So that can go out to places like Utah. It can go all over the place. And companies can put on this spectacular thing. All they have to have is housing for a lot of men.
Yes. So in terms of the chorus, can you scale the chorus? I mean, if you're scaling the
I wouldn't.
Symphony, yeah.
I wouldn't play with the roles. I would have everything there that you need. Yeah, there are 3 armies represented.
Okay.
Okay, and there's only 9 guys in each of the armies, but they are what you call battalions or companies.
Yeah, you need the depth of the voices.
So there are only, so you don't need a lot of men for each, but each of them have to stand alone. So that's a big deal. And every guy in the chorus is eventually going to sing some solo lines.
Okay, so you really do need all of them.
You need everybody, yeah. And you don't want to do without them.
Right. So you enjoy doing things with male choruses.
I like everything.
Well, yeah, so do I. But you and I were talking a little bit as we were talking about important things like the Navy hymn and Eternal Father. You have done something in addition to regular operas.
Oh, completely outside everything, yes. Because of Silent Night, which is based in World War I. It's the Christmas truce of 1914. So it's World War I in the trenches themselves. All right, so I'm studying all this stuff. I'm watching hours of documentaries to get myself organized because I'm going to have to approve set designs and costume designs, all that kind of stuff. So I have to do my own research before I get into it. And in the course of that, I learned that we had 900 homeless veterans in San Jose, California. Of course I know that we have homeless veterans from the Vietnam War. I see them on the street. But it slapped me so hard. And I thought, something has to be done. And I thought, well, of course, who's going to do what? And I could write my little check, but I don't make any money, so what kind of a check can I write? Yeah. And then I thought, well, you know what you can do, Larry? You can put on a fundraising concert. And then I thought it would even be better if it was a fundraising concert with military veterans. So that was August. I put the word out in lots of different places, and by October, we had sufficient singers to go into rehearsal. And in December, we sang a concert. A sponsor came along, covered all the costs of the concert, so we were able to give all the proceeds, which is, we filled up a 300-seat hall, and all that money went directly to All the Way Home.
Good.
And that was on the 16th of December. This year, on the 8th of December, well, this past season, we did it again.
Good.
And next year, we'll do it again.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it's an annual thing now.
They didn't want to quit.
Yeah.
So, and I'm loving it.
It's a nice community building thing, as well as raising actual money for things that are needed, people that are needed. I think that's great.
Those guys are so loyal.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I mean, they're right there. Yeah. They're there and they're working. But it's not just men. It's SATB.
Okay, good.
Because it includes also spouses, adult children of veterans, and those who work in veteran support services.
And of course, there are many female veterans.
Exactly.
And I know many of them.
That's right. And we have a number of them in the chorus. Yeah.
Okay.
Right from the start.
So I misunderstood. I thought it was an all-male chorus, which is why they didn't. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that it's SATB.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's good. And we just sang on the Hornet aircraft carrier.
You know, my father served on the Hornet. Yes.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, and I've actually led a youth group on there. I had 300 kids on there.
Well,
so I know the Hornet
3,
well.
Oh my God,
as a matter of fact, totally an aside, but in the Admiral's area there, the blue floor, they had leftover tiles that they threw away. My dad said, they're thrown away. May I have the leftovers? He got them. They were part of my playhouse when I was a little kid.
Very cool. That's very cool.
So yeah, the Hornet has really been part of our lives for a long time. Yeah, that's great. Good. Well, if you do another concert on the Hornet, I will absolutely come.
Well, they have invited us back, so we'll go back. Good. It's a very large space, though. My 30 choristers sound pretty small in that big room.
Yes.
That's a big space.
Yes, it is.
But we did a whole bunch of music from the 40s.
Good.
For that.
Good. Yeah, that sounds great. So getting back to the opera, which is really what I had you on here today for. What is it that you have coming up in the future, not in terms of specific operas, but what are your plans? I know that...
Our plan is to stay alive.
Your plan is to stay alive.
Yeah, that's the plan, stay alive.
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
So I know at the beginning you were telling, in a previous discussion, you were telling me that the Opera San Jose used to put on a particular opera every 2 years or so, like a Madame Butterfly.
Every fifth year.
So now you're doing it every fifth year.
No,
right?
that always was the case, every fifth year.
Oh.
Yeah. The residency in those days was a maximum of 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to bring this opera back until that singer had gone.
Oh, okay.
So every fifth year you could bring things back.
And how are you doing it now?
Not before 5 years.
Okay.
Although one might bring a Carmen back a little early, one might bring Butterfly back a little early, a year early perhaps, because we don't have that 4-year thing anymore. So we could bring it back. But there are certain operas that you better bring back or your public will be angry with you.
Yes, because I wanted to take my kids to Carmen and all, yes. Yeah, although I, had to remind them that I don't want to spoil the ending for anyone who's never seen Carmen, but it's rather shocking for the
has
kids.
not seen
there are
Carmen?
a lot of people. There are a lot of people, and as a matter of fact, that reminds me that I wanted to talk about that. In the opera world, there are people who have been going to opera their whole lives or their whole adult lives, and so they've seen many of these things over and over and over again. I've seen La Boheme many times.
Sure.
I can't remember for sure how many times. And I love it every time. And it's a little bit different with every company and every singer. But, you know, I'm one of those. But there are many people who have never been to an opera. And so when they're going to their first one, someone recommends to them what they should go see. So
Not
then they're looking
Wagner.
for it. I agree. Not Wagner.
Flying Dutchman. That'll work.
Okay.
But the other Wagners, save that until you've seen some stuff. You need to see some Verdi and some Puccini. And then you go see Wagner.
Yeah.
I would say most any opera by Puccini would be quite all right for a first experience. And if you didn't like it, it's not Puccini's fault. It was the stage director or the conductor or miscasting or something like that. And there's so many variables in opera that you just don't know, right? You just don't know.
Right, before you go there. Like I went to a Così fan tutte, I guess I should say, and I dragged along some people who had never been to an opera.
Not a good first opera.
Not a good first opera, and they were doing some things with the set, so they were trying to not let the set distract from the sound. So it was monochrome. And
that doesn't help. It's a comedy.
It didn't help in that regard, especially now. I must admit, I enjoy the sets. I love the sets, and I love fabrics, and I love to see them twirl in it. But occasionally in an aria, I close my eyes just to focus on the music.
Sure.
And I have to admit, in that one, I ended up just closing my eyes for the whole rest of the opera, and I enjoyed it much more. Yes.
Well, Così is very sophisticated. It's a sophisticated storyline. It's a complicated storyline. And many stage directors direct it as if it were vaudeville.
Yes.
Okay, lots of pratfalls and practical jokes. Well, there is room for practical joking in it, but that's not what it is. It's about four people who ruin their lives. It's a tragedy in clown's clothing.
Yes.
So, and it's complicated for American audiences who aren't prepared by great literature to walk in and expect something that isn't just every moment that you see, you know exactly what's coming next, right?
Yes.
That's how Americans tend to think. And that was not true in the Age of Reason and in the Enlightenment, okay? And Mozart was writing in the period of the radical Enlightenment.
Although he also wrote things like The Magic Flute.
Which I think is also very deep and ponderous.
It is deep and ponderous, but it really has its comic moments.
Yeah, it has funny people.
It is accessible. I've taken children to The Magic Flute, and they loved it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And there's so many books about the Magic Flute intended for children with Papageno and Papagena and all these, and the Queen of the Night and all those things.
My favorite character of all. So whenever I've had kids or students or whatever complain about me, I put on a little video of the Queen of the Night and I explain what the words mean. Basically, the most intense mother ever, let's just say, and everyone needs to see it.
Lady Macbeth would be a relief after the Queen of the Night.
I love the Queen of the Night. I love her.
But people do bring children to Magic Flute. And by the way, Magic Flute has been climbing in popularity until it's well up to the top of the top 10. It's not the very top, but it's falling like 6 or 5 into the top 10. It's pushing its way up. And I think it's because of so many publications for kids that are interesting to buy for your grandchild. Right?
Yes. And I just have to say, for those who may not know, that the Magic Flute and Die Zauberflöte are the same thing.
That's right.
It's just Die
Zauber is magic.
Yes. Yes.
And Flöte is flute.
Flute. Yes. So before we run out of time, I wanted to ask, how can the average person who maybe has never been to an opera, maybe feels they don't have the money to get involved in an opera yet, I think they need to go attend one.
Then they need to be at Opera San Jose.
They need to be at Opera San Jose.
We have a subscription
Okay.
for $100 for operas.
Okay.
Figured out $25 a ticket. That's the cheapest ticket we got, and I instituted that. I said, no, we're going to have a $100 subscription because we used to.
I think that's great. But in addition, supernumerary. I never say the word. I never say that word right. Supernumerary. Yes.
Yeah. Supers are actually on stage performing. They're not watching. They're busy.
Right.
They're getting into costume and makeup and all that stuff and going on stage. They have to come to staging rehearsals. There are quite a number of those. They have to go to the technical rehearsals in the theater. They have to go to the dress rehearsals and then performances. So it's a true commitment.
But someone perhaps who doesn't have the voice of an opera singer,
that's right,
but wants to have the experience of it. Quite often there are these rules.
That's true.
Yes.
And just yesterday, I was at the San Jose Opera Guild's annual brunch, and we auctioned off a supernumerary part in Madame Butterfly. So she'll be in Act 1. A judge bid on it and got it.
Good. Yes, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Well, yes, indeed, if you're willing to do the work.
Yes, and you have to show up. The point is, if you do it, you have a role. Yes.
A friend of mine who ended up on our board, her name is Rita Horiguchi.
Yes.
And she bid on one of these things at also a guild luncheon. She got it, and she was going to be in Hansel and Gretel. And she said, oh, I'd like to be in all the performances. So immediately the stage director figured out a role for her.
Wow.
So she had this elaborate silent role as she came in while the children are sleeping, and she ushered in all the little wood nymphs who were the 14 angels. She ushered all the, so she had a great time. She ended up becoming a donor and joining the board.
And that's the best of all possible worlds for everyone. So I have seen in the past, depending upon what opera your company or another company's put on, sometimes they need people who can do martial arts. Sometimes they need dancers. It depends upon what opera they're doing. So what kinds of skills? Martial arts, sword play type stuff?
Well, right now we have a Pagliacci coming up. Well, that's a troupe of Commedia dell'arte clowns.
Good.
And so just briefly at the top of the show, when the clowns make their first entrance, they would like an acrobat, they would like a juggler, they would like
so everyone can get involved is the point.
Well, with gifts and talents, yeah.
Yes. I mean, that sounds wonderful. So I hope that more people will become involved in opera and that you will be successful for at least another 35 years.
Well, thank you so much.
Now, I look forward to seeing what it is you will be doing in the future.
All right. And you're welcome to come.
Thank you very much. Appreciate. So once again, Larry Hancock of Opera San Jose. Thank you.
A great pleasure.